Hello, music lovers! I am Lucas Johnson, and this is The Reason for the Seasons: How Vivaldi Became a Great Baroque Composer. In this narrated PowerPoint, I will analyze and discuss how and why Vivaldi rose to fame as one of the three greatest composers of the Baroque period. I know that there is enough information to complete my project, because when I performed a WorldCat search for Vivaldi, the search turned up well over 100,000 results. Vivaldi rose to fame as one of the greatest Baroque composers because of his virtuosity despite disabilities, his pioneering work in the emerging field of opera, and his innovative composition known as the Four Seasons. This narrated slideshow will have three parts. This first part I call Brave from the Very Beginning. In these slides I will talk about the many hardships Antonio Vivaldi had to go through, even when he was very young. From the day he was born, Vivaldi was cursed with a kind of asthma that he called strettezza di petto, or tightness of the chest. This made it hard for him to breathe or even speak. Because of this, he couldn't leave home very much. His life was in danger right from the start, so his transition to composer of all things is all the more amazing. Vivaldi was brought up to live a life as a priest. He earned the nickname the Red Priest because of his hard-to-ignore red hair, but he couldn't keep his religious job for very long. Being a priest requires a lot of talking and giving speeches, which was a push factor for Vivaldi. This explains why he had great difficulty taking part in Mass. He sometimes had to leave the church early. Back at home, little Antonio loved music. He could play the violin at a young age. Soon he found that he liked writing music as well as playing it. Perhaps it was his extensive knowledge of breathing that led him to visualize how musicians could blow into wind instruments, which strengthened his skills of composing for them. Despite his medical problems, he proved to his friends and family that he could still grow up to be a virtuoso. One day, Vivaldi quit his job at the church to focus on music full-time. It's a little unclear if this was because of his asthma or simply because he liked music more, but this much we know. He followed the career path his heart and mind wanted him to make. His new job was at the Pio Ospedale della Pietà, an orphanage for Venetian girls, where he spent 37 years of his life practicing music. Many celebrities achieve greatness because of what they can do despite what they can't do. After all, Ludwig van Beethoven was also famous for writing music, this time in the classical period, despite being deaf. This other example will hopefully strengthen the idea that Vivaldi overcame his own disabilities to become truly great. And now it's time to move on to part 2. I call it Jumping on the Bandwagon. What was this bandwagon, you ask? It was none other than opera! In Vivaldi's hometown of Venice, operas were gaining considerable popularity. People were blending poetry, acting, and music, and making enjoyable art out of it. Just imagine how overjoyed the people of Venice would be to find out that Vivaldi was writing music at home. Antonio Vivaldi was starting to obtain some fame. By now he'd written a lot of music, including flute concertos, violin concertos, sonatas, and, you guessed it, operas. The music-loving people of Italy now wanted to hear Vivaldi's work played live. Soon, Vivaldi would become just as popular a composer as the other two greats of the Baroque period, Bach and Handel. But you need to travel to become famous outside your home, so Vivaldi played his own music in public, and he deliberately chose to perform his more challenging pieces. It's amazing to think that he could impress crowds, seeing as how his breathing issues restrained him from traveling and pushing himself to be the best. Before long, the Austrian town of Vienna wanted a piece of the musical action. Operas happen to be some of the earliest works that Vivaldi wrote. Some well-known operas written by Vivaldi are Argippo, Ottone in Villa, and Bajazet. Today, however, he's more famous for the other music he composed, like his concertos and sonatas. Still, this much can't be denied. He was a hard-working man, all right. Now we know that it was a mix of perseverance and sheer luck that caused Vivaldi to become a public superstar, both in his lifetime and posthumously. But there is one more reason why Vivaldi became so well known, and here's a hint. It's a certain musical work of his, and it has a natural theme. This is the third and final part. The title, The Painter Who Used Sounds, refers to Vivaldi. While some would argue that there are three primary colors that mix to make all the others, red, yellow, and blue, Vivaldi painted using 8 primary hues, Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. A musician, or any artist, becomes famous through creativity, doing things few people or nobody has ever done before. May I present the Four Seasons, without a doubt Vivaldi's most famous and innovative musical composition. The public saw it as unusual for many reasons, mainly because Vivaldi wanted people to hear the seasons themselves in the song and feel the seasons in their hearts. There's so many reasons why the Four Seasons shook up the world of music, but one that really stood out, as referenced in the title of Part 3, was how Vivaldi painted an imaginary picture to be experienced not with the eyes, but with the ears. In spring, for example, he made violins sound like chirping birds, a flowing stream, and a loud thunderstorm. People were impressed by how well A.V. could express emotions through musical instruments. Let's listen to the river and the storm. Another new idea Vivaldi pioneered was using poetry to accompany music. Now, the Four Seasons concertos did not have words for the performers to sing, unlike earlier music of the Middle Ages and Renaissance. Still, the composer did include poems to further help the audience feel each season inside. This musical painting aligns with each poem. For instance, the first part of the spring poem actually mentions birds, a river, and thunder. And boy, was the music programmatic. Vivaldi was one of the first composers to get specific in the details of how he wanted the song to be played and which instrument should play which parts. Naturally, the solo violin was chosen to play some important roles, like the singing birds. The violin was a special instrument to him. One last interesting thing about the Four Seasons is that while we today classify it as art music, Vivaldi composed it simply for the audience to enjoy music, to exhibit his mental paintings. Other music of his time was written to dance to or to serve whatever purpose the church asked it to fulfill. The Four Seasons was different. It was meant so any listener could just sit back, turn on their imagination, and enjoy the show. In conclusion, Vivaldi had lasting fame and a lasting legacy because of his bravery in the face of disabilities, his creativity in writing and programming music, and a little bit of luck that came from living in a city of music lovers. That's why we still study and appreciate Antonio Vivaldi's music today. Bye.